During my freshman year at college, I found myself immersed in a city that was 2 hours away from my hometown. The bustling urban environment offered an exciting change of pace from my previous small-town life. However, the city's larger size also meant encountering a more diverse crowd, which unfortunately included some shady characters. Despite being an introvert, I surprisingly made friends quite easily. My laid-back nature and ability to be a good listener helped me connect with like-minded individuals. Among my new college friends, I found a close-knit group of stoners who shared many of my interests, including horror movies and the occult. I was particularly fascinated by books on demonology and anything that delved into the mystical and eerie. As college life unfolded, we quickly discovered that smoking in our dorm rooms was a recipe for trouble. So, we embarked on a quest to find a suitable spot where we could indulge in our cannabis sessions without drawing unwanted attention. After some exploration, we stumbled upon a hidden gem, a deserted parking lot just a brief 5-minute walk from campus. It seemed like the perfect haven for us to relax and unwind. The parking lot backed up against an old fence, and someone had cut out a small hole in it, creating a clandestine passage to an area of abandoned train tracks. Although the tracks were in terrible shape, they provided a surprisingly peaceful and secluded spot for our smoke sessions. It was soon dubbed our smoke spot, and we began frequenting it regularly. One chilly evening, after a particularly stressful day of classes, we decided to mix things up and venture further down the mysterious train tracks. Curiosity got the better of us, and without knowing where they led, we set off with a spirit of adventure. The wooded areas on both sides of the tracks created an atmosphere of intrigue as we continued walking. However, our carefree spirits took a sudden turn when, in the distance, we spotted 3 figures approaching us. The closer they got, the more unsettled we felt. It was as if an unexplainable aura surrounded them, a sensation that sent shivers down our spines. As the trio drew nearer, we noticed something peculiar about their movement. 2 guys and a girl, all clad in black, walked in eerie unison, seemingly following an invisible beat. Their silence was disconcerting, and it became apparent that they were not there to engage in casual conversation. Trying to quell our growing unease, one of my friends, Jojo, mustered the courage to greet them, hoping for a friendly response. However, our efforts were in vain as they remained unresponsive, their fixed gazes directed straight ahead. This peculiar behavior left us puzzled and fearful of their intentions. As if sensing our rising fear, the trio quickened their pace, closing the gap between us and them. Panic set in, and an instinctive urge to flee took over. We turned and sprinted back along the tracks, pushing ourselves to our physical limits. Despite the tracks being in terrible condition, our adrenaline-fueled bodies seemed to navigate them with the precision of seasoned athletes. My heart raced, and my breath came in ragged gasps, but the fear of the unknown drove me forward. Finally, as we reached the hole in the fence, I held it open for my friends, urging them to pass through quickly. We didn't stop to catch our breath, but continued running, fear propelling us back to the safety of our dorms. Back in the warmth of our rooms, we were all visibly shaken, both from the chilling encounter and the cold night air. My anxiety, which had been relatively manageable before, flared up, leading to a panic attack. We spent the night comforting one another, grappling with the unsettling experience that had just unfolded. After that terrifying incident, we vowed never to return to our once beloved smoke spot. The place that had provided us with solace and camaraderie now held a dark and haunting memory. Our friendship remained strong, but we collectively decided never to speak of the incident again, as if not mentioning it would somehow erase the lingering unease. The experience served as a sobering reminder that even in the midst of laughter and camaraderie, we must always be vigilant and aware of our surroundings. The once exciting and carefree adventure had turned into a chilling and cautionary tale, forever etched into our memories. We learned that beneath the city's veneer of excitement and possibility lurked an underbelly of unknown dangers. From that point forward, we embraced a newfound sense of caution and wariness, navigating college life with both curiosity and apprehension. I've debated posting this story for a while, mainly because I'm not a writer, and it's quite a lengthy and unnerving experience. My apologies in advance for the long narrative, but I feel compelled to share what happened to my friend Sam and me 3 winters ago. You see, Sam and I shared a love for exploring nature and spending time outdoors. We were avid hikers, geocachers, and outdoor enthusiasts. Our group of friends had recently introduced us to a beautiful place in Wisconsin known as Grant Park. We had visited this park together with them 3 or 4 times before, and each visit had been a delightful and enjoyable experience. We would walk around, marvel at the breathtaking views of Lake Michigan, find solace in the crooks of trees, and indulge in passionate discussions about books, games, and all things nerdy. One particular winter, we had been delving into a new tabletop RPG game called Hunter: The Darkness, akin to Dungeons and Dragons. The park's scenic landscape served as excellent inspiration for our storytelling sessions, and we cherished the magical ambience it added to our game. One day, we decided to venture to the park alone during dusk to capture some picturesque scenes with our camera, intending to use them to enhance our game sessions through Photoshop. Grant Park was vast, with numerous bridges, footpaths, and winding roads scattered throughout. As we crossed a bridge surrounded by dense woods, a car drove by, catching us off guard. The window rolled down, and a guy inside called out to us with an unsettling, "Hey!" We jumped in surprise, but brushed it off and continued our walk across the bridge. However, less than a minute later, the same car returned from the opposite direction, with the driver's side window rolling down again. This time, the driver, another male, called out to us with a more insistent, "Hey ladies, come here." Anxious and uncomfortable, we quickened our pace, hoping to shake them off. Fortunately, the car drove away, but right as we were about to reach the end of the bridge, to our dismay, the car reappeared, coming towards us from the original direction. Fearing the worst, we made a split-second decision to escape into the safety of the surrounding trees and up the nearest hill. We heard the car come to a halt, and the 2 men began yelling for us to come back. Adrenaline coursing through our veins, we continued running until we found a secluded, dark spot where we hid for what felt like an eternity. We stayed quiet and kept our breathing low, praying that they would leave soon. After what seemed like ages, we finally mustered the courage to venture back to our car. Trembling and heart-pounding, we cautiously made our way back, making sure the coast was clear. Once we were safely inside the car, we drove away, leaving the unsettling encounter behind us. You might think that such a harrowing experience would deter us from ever returning to Grant Park, but after getting properly warmed up with hot chocolate from Perkins and having a good laugh over how scared we were, we decided to put it behind us. We even returned to the park a few more times, this time with our male friends, and nothing remotely scary occurred during those visits. It was during one of these outings that Sam and I decided to go back to the park, just the 2 of us again. We were confident that our fears from the past were unfounded, especially since we had gone with our male friends without any issues. So, we set out again, armed with our camera, to capture the perfect shots for our game. As we walked down the road towards the lake, the familiar sight of the same car passing by sent shivers down our spines. The window rolled down, and the occupants made random, unsettling noises, triggering our anxiety. Learning from our previous encounter, we decided not to wait for them to circle back, but instead ducked into the nearby woods and started walking back towards the pier. Abandoning the original photo spot, we chose to explore the pier instead and maybe catch some scenic shots of the lake as the sun dipped below the horizon. The pier was situated at the end of a long, thin road leading from the top of a vast grass field, curving down to the parking lot. It was about 200 yards away from the pier, and if you walked down from near the pier to the right side of the parking lot, there was a little bridge leading into a development area with a tennis court next to the preserve. As we continued our trek towards the lake, the same car drove down to the parking lot by the pier. This time, they didn't say anything, but we felt their eyes on us. Uncertain of whether we should proceed to the pier, we slowed down, trying to assess the situation. The car circled around in the parking lot, and when it reached where we had stopped, we made a split-second decision to turn and start walking down the hill. We heard the car's windows rolling down, and when we looked back, we saw 4 guys and a girl inside. Our hearts sank as they yelled greetings at us, and one of them brazenly commented on our appearance, calling us cute. We were dressed in oversized winter coats and hats, making it challenging for them to discern our features, yet their comments were deeply unsettling. The situation escalated further when they suggested we wait for them, taunting us despite our clear discomfort. We ignored them and tried to distance ourselves, but their persistence was unnerving. "We're coming back for you," they yelled as they sped up the hill. Fear gripped us once more, and our instincts kicked in. With our hearts pounding, we made a beeline for the bridge, hoping to find a safe place to hide. The left side of the bridge led to a concrete deck with a drop-off to a ramp about 5 feet tall. If we got off the bridge and quickly jumped down, we could avoid being seen from the other side if we ducked down. Once under the bridge, we heard the car speeding back down the hill, and all 4 doors opened and closed. Panic set in as they screamed and laughed, their voices echoing in the vicinity. "Come here, girls. We'll be nice. We just want to play," they shouted menacingly. Most of them ran down the pier, but 2 individuals lingered behind, discussing their plans for finding us. Terrified and huddled together, we waited in silence as the minutes passed by. The bridge area was eerily quiet, and we dared not move or make any sound. Finally, we decided to cautiously peek out to see if the 2 remaining individuals had left so we could find a way to escape. We spotted one of them on the other end of the bridge, and he spotted us too. He yelled to his companions, alerting them to our presence, and then began running across the bridge towards us. With adrenaline surging through our veins, we didn't hesitate and took off towards the development area. Our hearts raced as we ran around the side of a tennis court, with 3 of the guys still in pursuit. Although one was getting dangerously close, the others were gaining ground rapidly. In a desperate bid to escape, we quickly turned between 2 houses in the subdivision, hoping to lose them in the labyrinth of streets. It was a tense moment as we tried to navigate through unfamiliar territory while staying hidden. Thankfully, fortune favored us, and we didn't encounter them. During my high school days, I often babysat my cousins, Alice, 5 years old, and Sophie, 3 years old, on Friday evenings. Babysitting them wasn't too difficult, and it provided me with some extra pocket money. One Friday evening, while they were playing with dolls on the floor, I decided to do some research for a school project in the computer room. As time passed, Alice and Sophie told me they were hungry, so I took them to the kitchen and settled Sophie into her booster seat while I cooked. I made them nuggets and listened to their adorable, innocent chatter. However, I noticed that Sophie kept glancing toward a room across from the kitchen. Initially, I thought nothing of it, assuming it was just a child's curiosity. But her intense focus on the room started to unsettle me. Turning off the oven, I set their plates aside to cool and continued to observe Sophie closely. She pointed into the room, and when Alice asked what she was looking at, Sophie responded with a whisper, "There's a man in her room." My heart sank, and Alice's face showed fear as she looked in the direction Sophie pointed. I felt a wave of concern wash over me. Without alarming the girls further, I quickly picked Sophie up from her booster chair, took Alice's hand, and moved them to the back bathroom, locking the door behind us. I wanted to protect them and ensure their safety. I immediately reached for my phone and considered calling my aunt, their mother, to inform her of the situation. However, I knew I had to prioritize their safety, so I called the police first. I tried to remain calm, comforting the crying girls while we waited for the police to arrive. The situation was nerve-wracking, and I couldn't help but feel scared myself. I thought I heard a noise at one point, but I couldn't be sure if it was real or just my imagination running wild. I kept my focus on keeping Alice and Sophie as calm as possible until the authorities arrived. Finally, there was a knock on the bathroom door, and an officer called out, assuring us that they were there to help. I opened the door, and the officer informed me that they would search the house while we waited safely outside. I was relieved to see the police, and I followed their instructions, stepping outside with Alice and Sophie. The bedroom window was wide open, suggesting that the intruder had already fled. The reality sank in that the intruder had been so close to us, and the thought of what could have happened frightened me even more. I couldn't shake the fear of what might have occurred if we hadn't acted quickly and sought help. Thankfully, the police were prompt in their response, and I'm grateful for their support and assistance. Last November, my brother came to visit us from Dundee, bringing his 3-year-old son along. Since he had moved from Glasgow, we didn't get to see them often, making their visits cherished moments. Unfortunately, my brother's wife couldn't join us due to work, and during his stay, he had to leave abruptly for an emergency. His little son wanted to stay with us because we had bought tickets for a football game the next day. I agreed to take him back to Dundee after the game. The only available train was a late one, and it happened to be the last one for the day. So, after the football game, I took my nephew straight to the station. The train was quite crowded, but fortunately, I had booked 2 seats for us. Just as we were about to board the train, a man standing nearby made an odd comment about sardines. I found it peculiar and awkwardly laughed it off, not being good at making conversations with strangers. Upon reaching our seats, I noticed an elderly couple occupying them. When I told them those were our seats, they responded rudely, asserting that they shouldn't have to stand for the journey. Not wanting to create a scene, I left and couldn't find 2 adjacent seats anywhere, forcing my nephew and me to stand for about an hour until some passengers finally disembarked at Perth. Exhausted, I eventually fell asleep, and my nephew, being just 3 years old, also dozed off. When I woke up, we had missed our stop in Dundee, and the train was heading towards Aberdeen, about an hour away. Panicking, I realized I had no phone signal to make any arrangements and feared there might be no return trains from Aberdeen at that hour, possibly leading to an overnight stay in a hotel. Feeling desperate, I looked around the train to see if anyone could help. The carriage had cleared out, leaving only an older woman sleeping a few rows ahead, a young man engrossed in a book on the opposite side, and a middle-aged man, who earlier made the sardine comment, sitting behind me. In need of assistance, I considered approaching the man behind me, but his unnerving stare made me hesitant. However, with no other options, I mustered the courage to seek his help. He engaged me in conversation, and when I explained what had happened, he insisted on me staying at his place in Aberdeen for the night, assuring me it wouldn't be a bother. Though I declined politely, he persisted, claiming that hotels would either be fully booked or charge exorbitantly. Feeling increasingly uneasy, I excused myself to use the restroom, hoping to escape to another carriage. However, my fears escalated when he grabbed my wrist under the table, preventing me from leaving. He spoke in a chilling tone, warning me to stay with him for the night, insisting that he would protect me. Feeling trapped and unable to raise an alarm due to the lack of other passengers nearby, I couldn't bring myself to scream or resist. The rest of the journey felt like an eternity, and I realized there was no escape from this man's clutches. Upon reaching Aberdeen, he urged me to wake my nephew and tell him that we would be staying at a kind man's house for the evening. In a state of panic, I realized my worst fears were coming true. I knew what awaited us at his home. As we disembarked, a sudden commotion occurred, and the police tackled the man, arresting him for his menacing behavior. Amidst the chaos, I managed to flee with my nephew, running a short distance before breaking down in tears. The police comforted me and explained that the young man who had been reading his book in the carriage had alerted them via text, prompting their timely intervention. Eventually, the police took us back to Dundee, where my brother and his wife were immensely relieved to see us. Despite some time passing since the incident, the experience left a lasting impact on me. Now, I take extra precautions while traveling late at night, ensuring I am accompanied by someone and never miss my stop. I will forever be grateful to the young man on the train whose alertness and quick thinking saved us from a night of terror and potentially worse. The incident has made me more cautious and aware of my surroundings during travels, and I'll always cherish the safety and support of my loved ones.